All right, fifth grade. So now that you have watched the video on the 2010 oil spill off the coast of Louisiana, you now know that scientists and engineers have to clean up a mess. And when they pick up a big mess, there are things that they have to think about, and a lot of it goes into the properties of the mixture to be able to figure out how can I separate these out. We all know that having an oil spill is actually pretty bad for the ocean or rivers or anything like that. So it is very important that we do clean it up. And oil does have some unique properties that you have seen in the video. It floats. It is something that can burn. So those are things that they can use to separate the oil from the water. And so what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be the engineers, and we are going to separate this mixture that right here that you guys had written about, or that you guys talked about in the first page. And there is a business that is dumping a mixture by the bank of the river. And the only thing is we're going to pretend that two of these are hazardous, but we need to make sure that we separate out all of those substances. So in this experiment, if you guys wrote in your what we were talking about correctly, you can see that there is some marbles are in here. We've got some nails right here. We've got some sand, of course, it's going to be at the bottom of the riverbank. And then we have some cork. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we are going to separate it out, and I am going to tell you that of those things that you had written, there are some different things that we can use to separate out these mixtures. And I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a hint and see if what you guys had suggested was correct. So we are actually going to be using three things to be able to separate out these mixtures. We are going to use some magnets to be able to separate out the mixture. We're going to use this sifter to separate out the mixture. Sorry guys, it is a little bit big. And then last but not least, we are going to use some water to separate out the mixture. Now this is a big picture, so that's the reason why it kind of looks a little weird. So what we need to do first is we need to kind of discuss what exactly are we going to do to be able to separate out this mixture. So we need to think, what would be the best way possible to separate out the mixture? You also have to think about what are some things that might sink, what are some things that might float. That's something you need to think about, and kind of move that way. So what we're gonna do, you have already kind of figured out maybe some things that you want to use to be able to separate out this mixture. And what I'm going to start off with actually is that if I were to just pour water into this, I know that there's going to be some things that might sink, there's going to be some things that are going to float, but what is that sand going to do to that water? Okay, it's going to make it muddy. So then all the things that are going to sink are going to be down at the bottom, and it's going to be hard to clean up some of those things that have that mud in there. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to separate out the mixture with my sifter here. So I know it's kind of hard to see, and I'll adjust the camera. So here is my sifter, and of course you can't see this very well up in the top, and I'll try to do it. Move the camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mixture and I am going to pour it into the sifter. And right now what I have done is I have separated out some of the bigger chunks of cork. Okay, I've separated out the marbles that we have in there, but I still have the nails in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually use my magnet to separate out my nails. So now I have separated out one thing here. Okay, now I can go ahead and I can very easily separate out the marbles right here. But the main thing is now that I've separated out those things and I've used this sifter, take a look at the sand, okay? So here's the problem with the sand. I still see that in here, I have chunks of cork still. So what I am going to do is I am going to now take my water And I am going to see if I can separate out the cork from the water. And take a look at this, guys. I'm going to put the camera back down so you guys can see this, but what's floating at the top, do you think? Let's take a look at this from the side view of that. Take a look at what I did. So I separated out the cork and I separated out the sand, and look at what's on the top. So now what I could do is I could probably use some kind of a skimmer to pick that cork up to be able to separate it out from that sand, from that fourth object that we have. Okay, so when you're thinking about some things, you want to think about some properties. So of course, we could have right off the bat separated all of the things with water, but the problem is that this stuff right here would have been down, and especially my nails would have been down in the water, guys, and so it would have been muddy. So I would have had to figure out a way to clean the nails to be able to get that sand off of it. That's why it's very dangerous, like with oil spills, that you will see that like birds and such, that they have problems trying to clean that oil off of them. And so that's what makes it very dangerous for them. So we have to make sure that we can clean all of this stuff before it gets mixed up with other stuff in the water.